It's working. Yeah. So, good morning. Sorry for the delay in starting the lecture because we had some technical problems. Thank God now everything is set. I was asking you before I went out where we stopped, and so I now recollected where we have stopped the other time. So we stopped at the regions and quadrants of the abdomen, and now we are going to continue with the structures that you are going to meet in dissection. You know, you guys are going to begin your dissection very soon. And so if you want to cut the human body, there are specific layers of structures that you are going to meet while you are cutting the cadavers. You know, dead body, we call it cadaver in anatomy. Plural, we call it cadavers or cadavera. Anywhere you say is correct. Cadavera or cadavers. You understand, rather than you call them corpse. And also, because these are specimens. When somebody dies and we embalm, it is no longer a corpse, it's now a specimen. And that is why some of you are not even afraid of cutting the cadaver, because it's no longer in the actual form of the dead body. Because it's already been preserved, you know, placed in chemicals, and so it's just looking like, you know, a specimen. That is why people don't, you know, they are not afraid of cutting. So now what are the structures that you're going to meet in dissection? So you know it's layer by layer. And whenever you're going to dissect, you are going to put the body on a supine position. So the cadaver is lying down flat on the trolley, with the head facing up, together with the trunk and the sole of the feet. They are facing you. So they are facing you. And it all depends on where you are. If you are at the caudal region of the cadaver, so the soles are facing you. If you are standing at the cranial part of the cadaver, it means the, you know, topmost of the head is facing you. You understand? And so, what are the things that you are going to meet while you are going to dissect? The first and foremost structure that you are going to cut first is the skin. And you know, skin actually is made up of several, you know, layers of cells, which we'll discuss later. But what I want you to understand or to note is that skin is made up of two types. That's what we call thick skin and thin skin. What are the differences between the thick and the thin skin? The differences is that the thick skin, wherever you have the thick skin, there are no hairs. There are no what? There are no hairs. Look at the palm of your hand. Is there any hair there? No. If you see hair growing on your palm, it means you are a witch. You get my point? So if you see hair on your palm or on the sole of your foot, that means you are a witch. This is just on a funny note, you know, I'm just joking. You know, so, but ideally, you are not supposed to see a hair on the palm or on the sole of the feet. So these are the typical examples of the areas where we have thick skin. All other part of the body, we have what we call the thin skin. So in the thin skin, we have hairs there, but the structure of the skin there is like in one of the layers that can be found in the thick skin. That's what we call stratum lucidum. That layer is just glassy. It's very transparent. So it's absent in this thin skin, while it is present in the thick skin. So the thin skin has hairs, but lacks stratum lucidum, while the thick skin has no hairs, but has stratum lucidum. All the 6 layers of the skin. So now we're saying the first layer that you're going to cut is the skin, and then you know, in the skin, you know, if you look at the skin now, it's made up of, you know, different kind of colors. Even among yourself now, when you look at yourself, you see some of you are light in complexion, while others are dark. You understand? And even there are other people, you know, the Oyimbos, the white men, they are even much more lighter than we people because we are black Africans. Are you clear? So what makes our skin to be darker is the presence of what we call the melanin. So melanin is a hormone that is being secreted by one of the layers skin. When you come to the histology of the skin, you are going to see which of the layers secrete this melanin. And so it has cells that secrete this melanin is the hormone. These cells that secrete this melanin are called melanocytes. So the melanocytes are cells that are located in one of these layers of the skin, which I said that about 5 to 6 layers arranged in the skin, and one of the layers secrete this hormone known as melanin. So it is the one that is giving us this dark coloration in our own body, and it has its own significance. Number one, to identify ourselves. When you go to the white man's land, they know that you are black. When they come here, we know that they are white men, so we can identify ourselves. That is one. Two, the presence of the melanin also gives us some protection in our own body, because the God so kind, He has created us in Africa, where there's a lot of sunshine. You understand? And this sunshine, the sun is out. It has a lot of ultraviolet rays coming from the sun itself. And these sun rays, they are harmful to our internal organs. And so the melanin itself now, it is preventive, and that it absorbs this UV light, so that it's not going to be harmful to our own body. And so it is very much beneficial to our own self. Somebody would likely ask, what happens to those in the Western world, people in the UK, US? You see, what I will tell you is that it's very difficult for you to even see sun there. Sun comes, it appears honestly, but it's not as hot as this environment. You see the sun shining, but the temperature is about 1 degree centigrade, or even minus, but you can see the sun shining. You get my point. Somewhere if you go to Russia, for example, the temperature is about -10, -20, even -30. You get it, and people survive it. And so the temperature there is very cool. It's not hot. The rays there, are not as as much or as many as the way we have it here. You get it, and they also have the melanin in their own skin, but it's not as much as the way we have it, because they don't have much sun shining over their own skins. I don't know that you are clear. Good. That is why you see them like that. That is first structure that you can see. The second structure that you are going to decide is what we call fascia. You understand this fascia, it's made up of two types. That's what we call superficial fascia and the deep fascia. This superficial fascia is also made up of two types. There's fatty one or fatty layer. There's also what we call membranous layer. So even the superficial fascia is divided into two parts. What we call fatty layer and membranous layer. Where do we find these layers of the superficial fascia? We can find fatty superficial fascia in the anterior abdominal wall. And that is why you see some of our big men, allergists, those in the Kantunkari side and in Savangari side, when they have, collected all our monies when we buy so many things, you see them with very big belly like this. You understand? Or these looters of our own money in the country, the politicians, the senators and the members of the House of Reps, you see their stomach like this, the abdomen, very huge like this. And so it's nothing but the anterior abdominal wall has a lot of fat deposit in the superficial fascia. So the superficial fascia is fatty because they have eaten a lot of food. So the food is converted, the excess of the food is converted into fat. And so part of the excess of the food when these allergists eat, when their own neighbors do not have anything to eat, they have eaten enough. The remnant, the liver converts everything into fat, and the fat is being taken down into the part of the body, including the anterior abdominal wall. So the fatty deposit is like a stool. The anterior abdominal wall stores, the excess food that we have taken, convert it into fat, so that again, if they enter into trouble, like some of these allergists, they are kidnapped recently. If they are kidnapped, the Fulani people refuse to release them until they pay ransom. they keep them without giving them food at times. At times, if they sympathize with them, they give them gari and water. And so they are going to be utilizing the excess fat. That is, some people like us, if you actually now we are on our own. We are on our own because we have no fat deposit. So one day we will just die if they don't give us food. You get it? So the allergists are going to use that excess fat in the anterior abdominal wall so that it is going to be metabolized. So even if they stay without much food in the forest, adaji, no problem. In the food analysts are aware they will not even be giving them food. Instead, be using your own that you have in the anterior abdominal. You get it? So apart from the anterior abdominal wall, we also have it in the breast. You see, that is why you see the breast of a woman is a little bit larger than our own. In our own breast now, it's very small, very rudimentary. But in the woman, because of the presence of these hormones, the progesterones and estrogens, that one act on the, on the body to, conversion of the food they eat into fat, and then it is deposited in the breast, and so you see it larger than our own. That is the second area where we see fatty layer of superficial fascia. Thirdly, in the buttocks. In our buttocks, now you will see some big women, like the Yoruba women. You see them very big. I'm telling you, Yoruba women, they have very big buttocks. I said in Yoruba land, I know them very well. Yoruba land, you see their own women with fatty buttocks. You get my point? And so, I don't know, probably maybe the women over there, they eat more than the husbands. Very likely, yes. Very likely. So that's why they have larger, fatty deposit in the buttocks. It's not that we too don't have it. We have it. Even the men, we do have fatty deposit in the buttocks. When you cut the cadaver, when you remove the skin, you go to the superficial fascia, you will see the fat deposited in. But the fat content, the amount, the quantity, varies from one individual to another. Even among the women, you will see, even among the houses, we have some Hausa women with large buttocks, but they are not, they are not as many as those in the, West. You get it. Similarly, you can also have it in the back of our neck, what we call the nape of the neck. There too, you have a fatty deposit in the back of our necks. And so these are typical examples where we have this fatty layer of this superficial fascia. And so the membranous layer is deep to the fatty layer. You get it? So if you remove the fatty, the kisse, I don't know if you have been around when your parents slaughter rams during layer period. You see that after removing the skin, you see the fat, kisse. They will remove it, and then you will see some very slimy, membrane immediately after the fatty layer. That is the membranous layer. Come on, when we get tantani, ko yadi zamu ce yadi. Akwai difference between yadi and tantani. So that one is just like a jelly-like, kind of structure. So we have a membranous layer there, which is made up of alveolar connective tissue, which I'm going to discuss on later. So you may have a place with a combination of the two layers in one place. So you have one fatty and the membranous layer of the superficial fascia in one place, like in the abdomen and other part of the body. But there are other places in the body where you only have the membranous layer of the superficial fascia. There is no fatty layer there. Somewhere where you need a lot of movement, or where you need to, where the side needs to move across, the skin needs to move over the underlying structure. Somewhere like the eyelid. We blink. If something is going to fall into your eye, automatically you blink, don't you? You do blink. And so, if not because of the absence of that fatty layer, you will not be able to blink. If the eyelids are fatty, the eye will be closed because it's going to be very hard. You get my point? But now the fatty layer is absent, so the eyelids are very soft, and so the skin can move over the underlying, muscle of the eyelid, and so you can blink, you can open and close your eyes. And that is the essence of this absence of the fatty layer there. Similarly, you can also have the absence of the fatty layer of superficial fascia in the penis. The penis, it erects during sexual intercourse when you are sexually aroused. And so it erects and then it gets engorged. And so during sexual intercourse, the skin will be moving over the underlying structures of the penis. And if the penis is fatty, it will not relax. It is always going to be erected if there is fat inside it. But because of the absence of the fat there, the penis is able to expand and also relaxes. Are you clear? So this is the second place where we have absence of the fatty layer of the superficial fascia. Similarly, in the ear, when you can catch hold of the skin of your ear there, and you find out that you can easily, lift off the skin, of the, your ear. And so, similarly again, and I think these are the three examples where we can have absence of the fatty layer of superficial fascia in the body. So the deep fascia is very much important in that it is a very tough kind of membrane made up of so much stronger fibers than the fibers that are forming the superficial fascia itself. The deep fascia makes an investment. It invests certain structures in and around the neck. So in the neck, we have some muscles, also in the trunk, and also in the limbs. All over our body now, we have muscles, we have neurovascular bundles. And so this deep fascia, it tries to invest or enclose the muscles. So it wraps around, if this is the deep fascia, for example, if this is a muscle, the fascia surrounds a group of muscles. Maybe a single muscle like this, it surrounds it so that the muscle is completely inside the deep fascia. You get my point? Or it may enclose different muscles like that to make them into one sheet like this. You get my point? Like in the anterior compartment, posterior compartment, and medial compartment all the time. Or it may send some subtlety in between group of muscles so that it encloses one muscle and then it passes in between one muscle and another. So by the time the muscle now surrounds a muscle or a group of muscles, that is what we call investing deep fascia. You get my point? And so by the time it sends some extension between one or more group of muscles like that, that is what we call subtlety. Subtum, singular, subtlety, plural. You get my point? So it can send an extension between a muscle, between the first and the second muscle, or between different group of muscles. And so by the time it sends that extension, that is what we call septum, plural subtlety. So that means this fascia all over our body sends some, extension or partitioning between one group of muscle and another group of muscle. That is what we call septum. Similarly, the deep fascia may become thickened. Thickened in the sense that it makes like a tie around anatomical structures. Like in the anterior aspect of the ankle joint, we have tendons passing from the anterior compartment of the leg, and then they go down into the foot. And so those tendons of these flexural extensor muscles of the foot itself, and then the neurovascular bundles, the arteries and the veins and the nerves that they go to supply the foot itself. This deep fascia over there becomes thickened. If this is the foot, for example, this is the foot, and so these are the toes, and so these are the tendons. They come down to go into the toes. And these are the neurovascular bundles, for example, coming from the anterior compartment of the leg, and so they go to supply the foot. And so at the end of the day, this deep fascia over the anterior aspect of the ankle joint, it forms something like a band around the anterior aspect. And also also around the lateral acid, and also behind the ankle joint. So muscle like form something like a tie beam. Come on, I don't know that you understand. If you know a broom, you know a broom is tied down for you to be able to sweep. Because there are so many pieces of brooms in there, and multiples, and then they are tied together with a band for you to be able to sweep. And that is exactly what is going on there. So the tendons and the neurovascular bundles, the deep fascia over there thickens to form a tie, around those ones, so that they cannot, over spring, they cannot, disperse. Otherwise, if the deep fascia doesn't form a tie around that side, once the muscle contract, the tendons will spring forward like this. And so now it forms a tie over there, so everything is intact. So now it forms a retinaculum, we call it retinaculum. So the band, the thickening of the deep fascia over the tendons and the neurovascular bundles is what we call retinaculum. Plural we call it retinacula. You understand? So we have retinaculum or retinacula as a plural, and retinaculum is as a singular. You understand? So we have this thickening of the deep fascia as a retinaculum, and it also gets thickened by the side of a joint. But before we go into that, it also surrounds the whole limb. For example, in the thigh, the deep fascia surrounds the entire limb, anteriorly, laterally, medially, and posteriorly, to form what we call a sheath. You get my point? So it forms what we call fascia lata. It forms fascia lata on the thigh. You get it? And it can also surround the vascular bones only, what we call a sheath. Like in the neck, this deep fascia in the neck, it surrounds some important neurovascular bundles in the neck, containing important structures coming from the thorax, going into the cranial cavity. And this sheath of deep fascia around the neurovascular bundles of the neck is what we call carotid sheath, because it's around the common carotid artery, so it forms a sheath around. And the essence of enclosing the neurovascular bundles is to protect those neurovascular bundles from being damaged. You get it? Because the deep fascia is very strong, sheet of membrane, and so it protects these neurovascular bundles from, injury or damage. Similarly, the essence or the reasons of investing the muscles and the tendons is to prevent bone stringing that we have already made mention, like when you tie. And it also encloses a joint. So the fascia, as it encloses a joint, that is, for example, if we have, let's say this is femur here, and this is tibia here. So the fascia encloses this joint, for example, to form a capsule. So the fascia can surround a joint to form what we call a joint capsule. So joint capsule is nothing but the thickening of the deep fascia around a joint. You get my point? So again, this can get thickened. The deep fascia there on the lateral side or the medial side or anteriorly or posteriorly can get thickened over that capsule to form what we call ligaments. So the deep fascia, after losing the joint, it can get thickened on the side and anterior also form ligaments. So you can have ligaments by the side of the joint, which are also thickenings of the deep fascia. Please tell those people to stop making noise. Now let us continue. So we have now seen that the deep fascia can make an investment enclosure around muscles, and it can also send some extensions between the muscles as in form of septum or subtalar. It can also surround the muscular bones in form of sheath. It also get thickened around tendons and the muscular bones to form It can also surround a joint to form what we call a joint capsule. And also the joint capsule, the fascia around the side can thicken and get and form a ligament. And so we are now seeing, the different forms of the deep fascia. There are places in the human body where we have absence of deep fascia. Somewhere like in the penis, because the deep fascia is very strong. If it encloses a structure like this, because it is very strong, it's not elastic. If the penis want to expand, it cannot expand. Because if there's deep fascia around that, once the penis want to expand during sexual intercourse, it will not erect. Because the fascia there is very strong and is inelastic. And that is why God removes the deep fascia over there, leaving only the membranous layer of the superficial fascia, excluding the fatty layer. So now there are two things absent in the skin of the penis. What are these? Membranous layer of the superficial fascia, fatty layer of the superficial fascia and the deep fascia. That is one. Two, we also have no deep fascia in the breast. The breast, as a woman is growing, the breast also expands. You get my point? Why? Because when the woman gets pregnant, the mammary glands, they tend to get engorged with breast for the baby to be able to suck. And so the glands will become full of milk, and so the breast will expand. So if there's deep fascia, do you think the breast will expand? No. And so the deep fascia is absent in the skin of the breast, so the breast cannot expand for the breast milk to get enough space to expand, especially during pregnancy or when the woman is growing. You get my point? Similarly, in the face, we have no deep fascia. Why? Because face is very important. This guy is smiling, and his teeth is smiling, and some of you are even laughing and I'm talking. If there is deep fascia now, I cannot talk because everywhere is so plastered. It's just like you plaster everything with a plaster. If you want to make any expression, can you? No. You cannot. So the deep fascia is absent in the face for us to be able to make our facial expressions like laughing, smiling, making signals, blinking, so many things like that. And that is why the deep fascia over there, is absent. So we have no deep fascia there. Also, the anterior abdominal wall is also not there. But you can have the fatty layer and the membranous layer of the superficial fascia in there. Why we don't have deep fascia in the anterior abdominal wall is because when we eat, our stomach tends to protrude. If there is deep fascia, it's just like try to tie your anterior abdominal wall with a rope and see whether you can breathe well. You cannot. So it's similar to the presence of deep fascia in the anterior abdominal wall. The abdomen cannot expand. Similarly, God knows that our women will bear pregnancy. And so when they are pregnant, the uterus will expand so that it will just protrude like this for the baby to have enough room to grow. And so if there is deep fascia there, the baby will not have enough room it will not grow, well. And so probably maybe the baby will become very small because it cannot have enough room to expand. So now we have no deep fascia over there for our big allergies to eat well and have big abdomen, and also for our women to, have pregnancy, and then the anterior abdominal wall expands. And so we have now seen, these places where we have presence or absence of the deep fascia. And so apart from this structure, the next one that you are going to find are muscles. So muscles, we have series of muscles in the arm body, depending on where you cut. So you will see muscles after the deep fascia. So you can only open the muscle after cutting the deep fascia. What I also would like to tell you is that in the superficial fascia here, in this areola membranous, in between the membranous and the fascia here, you have this neurovascular bundles. So you have neurovascular bundles, the veins, arteries, and the nerves, what we prefer. So these are present. So one of the functions of the superficial fascia is to convey neurovascular bundles. You hear my point? It is to convey neurovascular bundles, the veins, arteries, and nerves. So after you cut the muscles, the next thing that you're going to find when you remove the muscles are the bones. So you will see the bones, and then after the bones, along the bones, you will likely see joints. If you go along the length of the bone, you will likely come across joint or joints. You get it depending on where you cut. So these are the structures that you are going to meet in the sections. And I have already discussed some of the systems before. We have discussed the integumentary system, which is the skin. We have discussed the musculoskeletal system, where we discussed the muscles and the bones. And we also discussed so many of them there. So these are some of the things that you're going to meet along the line. So these are the, 4 or 5. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 joints just when you go along the. So we have about 5 sections that you can cut across if you are doing the section. So now we're going to discuss about the tissues, different types of tissues in our own human body. So we just make a break of 2-3 minutes and ask a few questions, and then we'll continue. Is there any questions that you want to ask?